ahead. Wipe your ass. Damn.
Folks, today we're talking about Face Off. In this 1997 action flick, John Travolta plays a federal agent named Sean Archer, who has made it his life's work to catch his son's killer and notorious career psychopath, Castor Troy, played by Nicolas Cage. What follows is a classic game of cat and mouse, but with a twist. Cage and Travolta have stolen each other's faces using a futuristic technology, and they are now on a collision course of epic proportions. But who are we kidding? We can kind of expect the word epic when it comes to John Woo, no? But folks, what if I told you that this bombastic spy versus spy showdown was a long and rocky road to production that began years before the cameras even started rolling? Because this awesome, if admittedly not perfect popcorn action flick is riddled with roadblocks and uncertainty behind the scenes.
You'll be seeing a lot of changes around here.
In today's episode, we are going to talk about Face Off. We are going to tell you how this hit movie rose from the ashes and succeeded against all odds. Let's get into it.
Let's go, on board, let's go.
Alright, so Face Off was released in 1997, but the story of its creation actually goes all the way back to the year 1990, Hollywood, California. Two friends and fellow writers, Mike Werb and Michael Colleary, are shocked to hear that a mutual friend of theirs is being rushed to the hospital for surgery after a horrible hang gliding accident, which left him in need of severe facial reconstructive surgery. They learned during this process that the surgeons would need to remove their friend's face in order to reconstruct the bone underneath, before putting it back on. During this time, Mike and Michael were obviously concerned for their friend, who by the way did turn out to be okay in the end. But his story also left them with a flake of inspiration. They decided that they would write a spec script together that would hinge on the two leads of the story switching faces. The original version of the script even took place far in the future to justify the technology needed for this. They also knew that they needed at least one really good and indulgent action scene for this, which they found inspiration for in White Heat, where an inmate survives an intense prison riot. By the way, that definitely happens in this movie in possibly the greatest scene in the entire film. Interestingly, this scene also feels like the most futuristic as we're gonna get in the entire film, so there are still some shreds of the original spec script in there. So, with fresh ideas in their heads, they draft up the first version of the script and start shopping it around town. They're hoping that what they've written is fresh and unique enough to get the backing of a major studio. And folks, a major studio is what they got. In 1991, just months after writing the script, famous producer Joel Silver optioned the movie rights to be made with Warner Brothers. But there was a problem. The initial draft of the spec script wasn't exactly what Warner Brothers wanted or were looking to make. So they asked Mike and Michael to rewrite the script with new elements being added and several of the original elements being taken out of their original story. And folks, this went on for years. So long, in fact, that in the year 1994, after a reported 30 drafts of the script, Warner Brothers defaulted on the rights to the film, and Mike and Michael once again found themselves looking for a studio to make their movie.
Whee! What a predicament!
Don't worry, it almost immediately was purchased by Paramount, giving the film a budget of $80 million, which is considered a high budget for that period in the 90s. Paramount snatched up the rights to the movie and went straight into production. They didn't want to default on these rights the way that Warner Brothers did. They were going to make this movie.
Wait, you good looking. God.
So, it's the mid to late 90s now, and Paramount is looking for a director for their film. At one point, considering Rob Cohen to helm the project, but he couldn't make the movie because he was working on Dragonheart at the time. But by 1996, Paramount found their director in John Woo, a filmmaker clearly capable of handling the source material.
In Hollywood, whenever the two big stars together, there's always a problem, you know. But they have no problem with this guy, so John and Nick Cage. They are so polite, humble, and very, very professional.
By the way, shameless plug, if you're into John Woo, check out the video I made about the ending sequence of Mission Impossible 2, because there's a lot there. Now, when it comes to casting for Face Off, we got a lot to get into, so sit back, relax, and check out these actors who were considered for the lead roles.
I'm Castor. That's Archer.
And I'm bored.
Pairings for the Sean Archer and Castor Troy role respectively were as follows: Stallone and Schwarzenegger, Michael Douglas and Harrison Ford, Alec Baldwin and Bruce Willis, Johnny Depp and Nicolas Cage, and of course my personal favorite, Mick Jagger and David Bowie. They were always trying to get Jagger and Bowie to play opposite each other in the movies, I feel. There's like other movies, I think Heat almost did the same thing or something like that. In the end, Cage made the cut as Castor Troy, and he was one of the initial actors considered for the role. And Cage in this movie delivers what I would call a truly tapped in performance. I mean, he is unhinged, as the character should be. And cast as FBI agent Sean Archer was none other than John Travolta, who was experiencing somewhat of a career renaissance after the release of Pulp Fiction in 1994. Most of the fun of these two's performances are the scenes in the film where they have to play each other.
It's like looking in a mirror, only not.
See, with the characters swapping faces, we as the audience need to be convinced that John Travolta is not John Travolta. He's Nicolas Cage in what's essentially a John Travolta mask, and vice versa for Nicolas Cage's character. So, seeing John Travolta trying his best to do a Nicolas Cage-style performance is incredibly fun and endlessly rewatchable. Like, there are dramatic parts, but there are a lot of like funny moments to be had with that.
Dress up like Halloween, and ghouls will try to get in your pants.
But folks, that's not all. I mean, the performances needed to be there for sure, but what about the visuals that it would take to pull off an illusion like this? Well, this is where things had to get groundbreaking. SFX maestro Kevin Yeager, who you may know from a little something called A Nightmare on Elm Street, was hired to create some convincing practical effects to sell someone on the illusions of the movie. The biggest and by far most groundbreaking example of this is when Yeager created two one-to-one robotic clones of Cage and Travolta. Basically, he made a hyper-realistic and facially articulate robot version of each character for the face-swapping scenes. And these things are their next level.
They made a clone of me, which is terrifying to look at. You could trip out on it. It breathes and it twitches its face, and it's amazing.
These robots are not only uncanny with their facially articulate robotic movement, but they also have the same facial tics and blinking patterns as the real actors, which I think makes this even more almost spooky. I feel like the making of the props for this movie could also be like its own movie. These robots were used for the facial transplant scenes, and they look incredible, even to this day. So, lesson to be learned, stay practical, boys. Both Travolta and Cage have even stated that they felt a sort of disturbing, uncanny feeling when interacting with these things on set. Now, that's not to say that there aren't some incredible digital effects in this movie that really help sell the face-swapping illusion. And those digital effects, because they were used so sparingly, also hold up great today. The details in them were there. For the face-swapping scene in particular, these shots could have been pulled directly from a movie made in Hollywood today. In fact, I would even say that analyzing this set of frames, you could be convinced that this is something straight out of like a James Cameron movie. Which is funny because this film would go on to be nominated for its visual effects and would lose the Oscar to James Cameron for Titanic. Filming took place in LA and lasted about 3 months in total, and many of those shooting days were dedicated entirely to filming elaborate shootout sequences, vehicular chases on like boats and planes, and several pyrotechnic shooting days. By the way, shout out the prop designer who made these instantly iconic golden pistols for Nicolas Cage. I don't know if you guys remember the scene in The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent where he sees the face-off like wax figure and it has the guns, and then Cage uses the guns, which adds like a whole new meta thing to how sick those guns are.
Shut the fuck up.
You watch your fucking mouth!
Apologies for the tangent, let's get back to Face Off. During the shoot, there was also an alternate ending shot, which creates a much more existential feeling. In the closing sequence, Sean Archer, who now has his own face and identity back, would get home and look in the mirror only to see the reflection of Castor Troy, letting the audience know that he has been forever damaged, scarred, and psychologically traumatized from this experience. Something that I think would have been cool if they dabbled into like a sequel, just dealing with the aftermath of an experiment like that, but in the long run, it's probably good that that didn't happen. Personally, I'm actually a fan of what the final cut ending was, which was a lot more optimistic and refreshing after such an intense movie.
Everyone says I'm the bad guy in the movie, but I actually play the good guy for the bulk of the movie because I'm only the bad guy for the first 15 minutes or 10 minutes even, and then become Sean Archer. So, and then vice versa, he becomes the bad guy.
Another notable name from behind the scenes of this movie was John Powell, who definitely had a hand in making it as good as it is today. John Powell made his composing debut with this movie, and would go on to score films like the Bourne series and some of the X-Men movies. And Hans Zimmer was credited as the film's score producer on this film, so you know it had to be good. Speaking of music, there's a couple of fun music-related Easter eggs that I found in this movie as well. One of them is that at a point in this movie, you can hear Over the Rainbow being sang by none other than Olivia Newton-John, who of course starred as Travolta's love interest in Grease. I don't know if that counts as a cameo, but if it does, pretty sick. And for fellow fans of the band Say Anything, the frontman of that band, Max Bemis, can be seen as an altar boy in this film. I think his dad was like a producer somewhere on this movie, so he's in it. So, after years of the script being written and rewritten 30 different times, rights transitioning from one major studio to the next, a whole slew of talented actors being attached to this project at one point or another, and after some groundbreaking realistic robotic clones were created, the movie was finally done and released.
The eternal battle between good and evil, saint and sinner.
This film became a massive summer blockbuster, bringing in a total worldwide gross of $245 million, making this a huge win for Paramount. And critically, well, we all like this movie, don't we? Well, it was the same story when it was released in the 90s. This movie has always been and will always be a crowd pleaser. Audiences and critics alike praised the film for its groundbreaking visuals, Woo's masterful directing, and of course the endlessly entertaining performances of Nicolas Cage and John Travolta, who essentially play each other.
I thought you were dead.
I'm not dead.
This film received several awards and nominations, including the win for the Saturn Award for Best Director and a win for the MTV Movie Award for Best Action Sequence and Best On-Screen Duo, of course talking about Cage and Travolta. Not to mention the award that it has in my household for the movie that best encapsulates the raw energy of Nicolas Cage. I just like the way that it's like evenly distributed throughout this movie. There's like peaks and valleys to it.
Gave me Castor's face!
It does make you wonder though, why wasn't there a sequel? Well, actually, hang on. I'm not saying that there needed to be a sequel. I actually think this movie functions better as a one and done. But you can't help but wonder why Paramount wouldn't immediately want to cash in on such a successful film. Well, that is until 2019 when Paramount announced their intentions to remake Face Off with a new set of cast and characters. Supposedly, Adam Wingard was set to direct the movie, but development details and information are basically non-existent at this point. 7 years later, I think it's safe to say we ain't getting that sequel anytime soon, and I think we're all okay with that.
Two actors, you get to do both good and bad, which I think is fun, bottom line.
And folks, that is all the information you need to make up your mind on what the fuck you think happened to Face Off. I hope you enjoyed this story, and as always, let me know in the comments what you think about this movie, what was your first experience like watching it, how many of you caught it in theaters, all that and whatever else you want to tell me goes down in the comments. As always, like the video if you liked it, subscribe for the best in movie content, and stay safe out there, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!
If I were to let you suck my tongue, would you be grateful?
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.